戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Vance as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. It is June 22nd, 2026. It's actually a palindrome, 62226. It's episode number 951. My name is Gons. Quantum Enchantment today. Again, my name is Gons. At Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films and author of Prophecy Without Panic, recovering the patterns behind biblical prophecy, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Why no Basil today? Well, he is stuck in the time warp wormhole once again. You know, it tends to happen to him quite a bit. He travels through time, and it's not an exact science yet. And his vehicles, ever since episode 100, when he showed me in the shed, you know, his little time machine where we got to travel around and hit up, I can't remember how many guests we hit up. It was like 40 or 50 guests that we've had on the show, and we did it all at once. His vehicle has been very finicky. And of course, you know, I get a message beforehand from the future, you know. I get the message, a text message from the encrypted quantum network from Basil. It says, hey, I'm in July 2026, and I missed the show on the 22nd. Heads up. So, tends to happen every once in a while, but it's okay. Show must go on. And could have used his help today because, to start off, I was suspended on X. That is right. My X account, at Face Like the Sun on X, is suspended. And I got the note here. Your account is suspended after a careful review. Careful review. Grok. Getting a little crazy. We determined your account broke the X rules. Your account is permanently in read-only mode, which means you can't post, repost, or like content. You won't be able to create new accounts. If you think we got this wrong, submit an appeal, which I did. I did submit an appeal. And yeah, it was, I looked at the deal, you know, whatever community guideline I allegedly violated. And they told me that it was, I think it was, let me see, let me double check it because I don't want to get the verbiage wrong. I want to make sure that these are accurate. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to find it. I thought I had this ready and handy, but apparently I don't. Okay, it was something behavior. Let's here it is. Inauthentic behaviors. Inauthentic behaviors. I don't know what's inauthentic. You know, there's plenty of people that use bots and stuff and connect their accounts to AI agents, and these agents are posting for them. That seems a little more inauthentic than what I've been doing on the platform, which is just share my thoughts. And I think what happened, quite honestly, is that anytime I make a post, so this is part of cracking the algorithm on X. What you would do is get a big post that's already out there, quote post it with your own commentary on it. And usually you can put a meme in there or a short video or something like that. And then you take that post and you quote post it as a reply in the replies of that big post. I know if it's too confusing, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that important. But basically you take your post and you share it as part of your reply in other people's posts. And last week, the whole dialogue story, the secret society, oh, they were hacked and now they're out in the open. We covered it last Wednesday. That story went absolutely crazy viral on X. And I didn't see anybody talking about how, hey, maybe this was on purpose. You know, that was kind of my take after going through the article and looking at some of the things. I thought, man, this has to be public, or I'm sorry, this has to be on purpose. There's no way Peter Thiel, the man who started Palantir, is hiring some people with some, you know, very leaky, faulty websites where all the information is easily hackable just by toggling to HTML mode. Okay, so it just seems ridiculous to me. And I didn't see anybody taking that stance, or maybe if they did, it wasn't hitting my algorithm. So I was just making sure that that thought process was being shared under those big posts that, you know, they get really, of course, they go viral. The posts that have millions of views and they're like, oh, the truth comes out, Peter Thiel's secret society, all this kind of stuff. Just wanted to make sure my take gets seen in there. And I think that post got 16,000 impressions, which is pretty low for that methodology. I've had other posts using the same method hit 1 million impressions very recently. So anyway, my X account is suspended. And of course, if we want to get esoteric about things, we can, because of course, today the White House, and ironically enough, on my X account here, I can still log in, but it just tells me I'm suspended and I can't do anything on it. I can't post. I can kind of look around and see what people are posting, but not much. And of course, the first post that I see when I logged in, the White House. What does the White House have to say? The White House posts this 5 hours ago, or maybe more now. White House will be Q posting today, ... And then a big blank section. That's what they do to get people to scroll. It's an engagement hack to get people to, you know, sit on your post for a while. I mean, they put in a large blank spot. And let's see, I got to hit show more at the bottom. Oh, it just keeps going. The blank. Oh, here it is. And by Q, we mean quantum. Stay tuned. Wow. The White House. And then, of course, a few hours ago, are you enjoying the show? Refill your popcorn. Oh, this is Department of War. American quantum dominance. And I'll talk about quantum today. Of course, if you've been with us for many years, we've been talking about not just QAnon, but the quantum problem or issue, the quantum technologies and the quantum physics of it all. And you know, the timing is so interesting because last Wednesday, for anybody that checked the show notes for canarycrynewstalk.com, which you can always go to and see the show notes, just go to canarycrynewstalk.com and you can click on the various episodes that are published. And we usually publish the show notes on the day of the show. So that's why you'll see today's episode already there. Of course, the video and the audio is not there quite yet. But last episode, Antichrist in Awe, episode 950, if you go into that and go look at the show notes, I had a couple quantum stories on standby. We didn't quite get to it. We ran out of time. But there were a couple stories. One is Q Day, Why CEOs Must Act Before Quantum Computers Break Existing Cybersecurity by Forbes. And Q-Day is something I made a big deal about back in 2024, specifically in the film Age of Deceit 4, Eschaton Cipher and the Counterfeit Ledger of Life. I talked about Q-Day because the ODNI, they were talking about Q-Day as this problem that we're going to have. It's in the future and we need to prepare now type thing. And they've been saying that for many years. But now it's getting to that point where the rubber is starting to meet the road and AI is accelerating all of this, of course. Then the CNBC article, Amazon AI exec predicts first commercially useful quantum computers in 5 to 7 years. And we'll dive into it because I think this element or aspect of computing and the advancement of computing has a lot to do with the re-enchantment that we've also been talking about. And it's sort of the technology side of the re-enchantment that will assist in bringing back all of the mystical and magical powers of yesteryear, the antediluvian world, pre-flood world when things were much more enchanted. So, of course, the day that the White House posts about quantum using QAnon engagement farming, my account gets suspended. Happy Father's Day to everyone yesterday. And of course, all in honor and worship and glory goes to our Father above, the most important Father. But yeah, it was just one of those things. And what I find so funny is a couple years ago when Elon took over X, one of the first things he said was, there will not be, engagement farming will not be allowed. And if you don't know what engagement farming is, it's basically a way to farm engagement, farm being an analogy for trying to get people to engage with your account. If you want to, a lot of times people will put breaking to a story that's really old, or like, I can't believe this, whatever it is, right? This is the same type of stuff we saw on YouTube years ago. I don't believe, no one's talking about this, that kind of thing. It's the same type of sensationalist headline grabbing type of stuff. And a lot of times, it's allowed anyway. Elon kind of does it a little bit, to be honest, but he said he's not going to allow it. But here we have the White House trolling a Q post. White House will be Q posting today. And of course, it's about quantum after taking up, I don't know how many lines they took up here, probably like 50 lines of blank stuff on the post before any more text pops up. But there you go, 2026, wild, crazy world. I'm not too worried. Of course, if you're listening to this now, the numbers are low today in terms of the live stream, obviously, because a lot of people, you guys are tuning in through the X account, the @FaceLikeTheSun account. That's how you were tuning into Canary Cry News Talk. So now I'm seeing the numbers here and it's pretty low. So I appreciate you for being here. If you came here from X, like if you found us on YouTube or Rumble or something like that, because you noticed that the X account is suspended right now, I appreciate you. And one way to stay connected, this is why we do the text message alert system. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226, and we will text out anytime we go live. And that's something that is useful at a time like this, when otherwise you would think, wait a minute, why am I getting a text? And then, you head over to @FaceLikeTheSun on X and, account is suspended. So you'll notice that you can't watch it there. So it's useful. The text message alert system is being used for its purpose on a day such as today. That's why we encourage everybody to at least sign up for that. We're just trying to cover multiple vectors for this type of thing. And to be honest, we were trying to build, or we have built, a good amount of stuff for canarycry.tube. It's simply a lot of the back end that is a lot more expensive than we thought it was going to be to run it, and a lot more difficult technically. The gatekeepers make it very difficult to not rely on them. If you're not going to rely on the Rumbles and the YouTubes and the X's and all these different platforms, they're going to make it really, really, really expensive for you. And that's why I think most people just submit to the tech oligarchs, if you will, the technocrats who run things. But it is Monday. Let's see. Let me check the calendar, the Canary Cry calendar. It says here, 1879, U.S. Congress creates Department of Justice. All right. Happy birthday, Department of Justice. You are, what is it, 150 years old, close to 147 years old, something like that. Great job, Department of Justice, for doing justice, I suppose. Of course, hit or miss over the years when it comes to that, but the world goes on. The world goes on. Okay, let's jump in right away here and get to things because, of course, anytime it's a solo show, I'm gonna ramble. I'm gonna ramble, guys and gals. Grab a coffee, sit back, relax. Gonz is gonna go on a tirade here. No Basil to cut me off today. And if you got questions or comments or something like that, be in the chat. We got the chat scrolling here on the bottom right of the screen for those of you watching. If you're listening to this afterwards, you can just hang out. Just hang out. Okay, here we go. Quantum computers. Wow. The White House posting Q post today. I keep doing this to myself. Scroll. And by Q, we mean quantum. Stay tuned. All right. So last week, I wanted to do this story, ran out of time. The Forbes article was very interesting. The headline here, Q Day, why CEOs must act before quantum computers break existing cybersecurity. And part of the reason why I had that story in the queue, ironically, for last week's episode was because we were talking about the dialogue alleged secret society from Peter Thiel getting hacked, right? Oh, they were hacked and now all their 20 years of cover up or silence is exposed or whatever. And part of the issue is that this is a trend. It will be a trend, I think, when it comes to things. We're in the age of transparency. We're in the age of re-enchantment, and that means all old things, all legacy things get exposed. That's part of the game. You expose a part of the old thing, and that way you can usher in the new thing. I mean, we saw it with COVID. When, of course, there was no jab for the new thing, and so we have to rush it and get it to market as soon as possible. This is similar, although, with computing, this is, and we knew this for years, that this will be an issue. This is going to be a problem unless it is rolled out appropriately. And I go back and forth on this ethically because, well, you'll see that the implications, and especially for Q Day, the way the ODNI, the Office of National, Office of, what is it? OD Directors. I can't remember. Department of National Intelligence. Yeah, that's what it is. ODNI. What they talked about with Q Day a few years ago was that if quantum computing gets to a certain level before the official governments and the institutions get to it, then all of our current encryption will get hacked. And that will be a problem. And so there's a race going on to implement quantum. And where we are right now with it, well, I think as of like 3 or 4 years ago, people were already in development on the code side. There were a few different quantum computing languages, if you will, coding languages that were developed. And then there's so code-wise, I think they're actually a lot further ahead than people realize. It's the hardware side that needs to catch up to it. And the hardware side is still in development. It's not so simple as, hey, let's just go down to our local Best Buy and get the new quantum chip or something. It's not that simple. There's a lot of temperature management, although that's also being explored in terms of fixing or bypassing to allow quantum computing. And then all this AI stuff, right? We're seeing all the data centers pop up, and that's been an issue. And people are finally sort of pushing back against this idea of data centers. But really, the data centers, it's not just about AI, it's about quantum. They're not telling us that necessarily, but it's about quantum. It's about data harvesting right now. So harvesting as much data as possible right now, even if it's encrypted, because people will be able to go back and unencrypt or, decrypt basically all of the currently encrypted material. And so this will become an issue as time goes on. But here's what Forbes said last week. In cybersecurity, the most dangerous crisis often arrives slowly enough to be ignored. For years, the threat of quantum computing lived comfortably in the category of interesting but distant. That comfort is gone. Major institutions are no longer treating the quantum threat as a far-off academic possibility. On January 16th, 2025, Executive Order 14144 directed immediate federal action on post-quantum cryptography. Subsequently, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, finalized its principal post-quantum encryption standards and urged organizations to begin migrating. The private sector is also moving. In March 2026, Google set a 2029 deadline for its own post-quantum cryptography migration, explicitly linking the timeline to progress in quantum hardware, error correction, and factoring resource estimates. These shifting estimates are also driven by new quantum algorithms, such as the JVG algorithm, which severely reduced the number of qubits required to factor RSA keys. All right, so they get a little technical here, of course. Forbes making all the technicalities. Much of today's digital security depends on public key cryptography. And this includes all cryptocurrencies, by the way, specifically RSA and elliptical curve cryptography, ECC. That is actually a big component of cryptocurrencies, and specifically Bitcoin with elliptic curve cryptography. These protocols protect secure web browsing, online banking, e-commerce, VPNs, software updates, digital certificates, and electronic signatures. So, okay, just real quick. A lot of people talk about the issue with, the issue of, and I'm going to put this in the context of cryptocurrencies, but it's not about cryptocurrencies. People say, well, what if quantum comes along? It'll hack Bitcoin. And it's like, yes, but if Bitcoin is hacked, that means all encryption is hacked, meaning everything, online browsing, online banking, e-commerce, all VP, everything is hacked. So it's not just a cryptocurrency issue, number one. And number two, the encryption method was developed by the NSA. This is true that, people say, well, Bitcoin was made by the NSA. Here's proof. And they'll give you the evidence of the NSA coming up with the encryption method. And again, true, but also, are you online? You must be NSA because you're using, NSA developed encryption on your computer. So it's kind of one of those things where you gotta understand the technology a little bit more. I don't understand all of it, to be honest. And I don't think the technologists necessarily understand all of it either, because we are in this strange re-enchantment era where a lot of things are mystical and bringing back things that don't make sense. A lot of AI computing, the people that developed AI have admitted that, hey, there's a black box element here where we get an input, we establish an input, and we get an output. We don't know why, we don't know how the computers figured all that stuff out, but it did, and it gave us the answers. So let's move on with it. Let's give it to everybody. So this is part of the advancement in technology. This is part of the rapid increase in capabilities that computers and really it's just fast math is what it is, has allowed us to do. And it's certainly going to continue, and quantum is that next giant leap from regular encryption that we have now to that next level. So we've been talking about it for a long time. We've been talking about guys like Geordie Rose. There was a company called D-Wave. That's a throwback if you've been around for a while. There's a name you might have not heard in a long time. There was a corporation, a company called D-Wave. Let me pull it up right now because I want to see what they're up to. I think they're still doing quantum computer stuff. Yeah, here we go. D-Wave, they're there. Completes the acquisition of Quantum Circuits, Inc. So, all right, so they're still buying up certain companies and they're developing their quantum computing frameworks. Now, they claimed that they figured out quantum computing back in I can't remember, 2016 or something when we were looking at it. And of course, Geordie Rose was on stage at one of these conferences presenting the D-Wave supercomputing quantum computer. And he was saying, we are summoning the old ones, like the what's the you guys in the chat remember what exactly the old ones are. Man, what was the I'm trying to remember the name of the actual story. It's like a mythology, the Lovecraft. There we go. H.P. Lovecraft, The Old Ones. Yes. Yeah, so from mythology, right? That's what the head of the quantum computing company D-Wave was saying, that you were summoning the old ones, the Lovecraftian old ones, I think is the exact quote he used. So that was 10 years ago, okay? So you can imagine what they have now, and you can imagine where it must be if they are publishing on Forbes and they're saying, hey, Q-Day's coming up, Q-Day's happening, all right? And it says right here, that vulnerability points to Q-Day, which is the moment quantum machines can defeat the cryptography supporting much of modern internet. The greater danger, however, is that the trust layer of the digital world will begin to fail. If an attacker can break or bypass today's public key systems, the consequences go well beyond secrecy. Websites can be impersonated, software signatures can be forged, certificates can become unreliable, and secure sessions can be intercepted or spoofed. Quantum computing threatens not only confidentiality, but authenticity itself. So anything that's authentic on the internet is under threat with quantum. And notice how Forbes will they mention Q-Day. They do not mention that Q-Day is a term or phrase that was brought up in documentation, public documentation, by the ODNI as early as 2023, 2022, I believe. I mean, maybe even before that. Specifically, the Q-Day, though, was in the after 2020, though, I think. So, yeah, they're not going to say that, of course. We got, speaking of the ODNI, we did have, what was her name? Step down. I got to look it up. My brain is going in 50 different directions. Tulsi Gabbard just stepped down from the ODNI. And what does she do on her way out? She drops the big bombshell news that Anthony Fauci covered up COVID, right? It's like, okay. First of all, statutes of limitations, like technically, maybe there are ways around arresting Fauci, who's super old. It's like, man, at this point, does it matter? Like arresting Fauci is not going to do anything other than rah some people on the internet that called it, But anyway, she's out. She left as of June 30th. She's resigned from the director of national intelligence. And of course, she's making it seem like she's dropping this big bombshell, but really, I think it has more to do with ensuring a post-intelligence career for Tulsi Gabbard herself. And so anyway, that was a little side note to this whole thing. Quantum proofing your systems. This is where the concept of quantum proofing becomes essential. A system is quantum proof when it is designed so that a future cryptographically relevant quantum computer cannot practically undermine its confidentiality, authenticity, or integrity. But quantum proofing is not the same as swapping one encryption algorithm for another. That is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in the current debate. Post-quantum cryptography is necessary, but it is only one piece to a much larger transition. CISA and NIST have stressed that organizations need a full quantum readiness roadmap, which requires cryptographic inventory, supply chain planning, and structural migration strategies that rather than a last-minute patch. Real quantum proofing ensures proper generation of encryption keys, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so basically, and we have to think about this, why all the supply chain disruptions, starting with COVID, but certainly since Trump took over in 2025, his second presidency, if you've noticed that he's talked about taking over Greenland, taking over Canada, and people, we have covered how the oil is one thing. Okay. Yes, the oil is important. South America, different nations in South America. Why? It's not just about the oil. The oil is the public story, and certainly there's a truthful element to the oil issue. You got the Straits of Hormuz, all this stuff. But if history teaches us anything, recent history teaches us anything, what they tell us in public is a small part of the greater agenda going on. Always, right? And so if we think about it in terms of why Trump is trying to restructure supply chains and different resources. Okay, we can talk about a new energy infrastructure like we have with nuclear. There's probably going to be some nuclear energy infrastructure that's going to replace a lot of the current kind of legacy systems. I think that proof of work will be involved, and that is the encryption method for Bitcoin to work. But essentially, that methodology will be used to secure cyberspace. And as part of that transition, maybe early forms of quantum computing will be involved. And that's something that you can't do unless you have a rat line to the supplies necessary to build it. And certainly at the national level, there's probably a competition going on between places like China and Russia and the United States. There's an AI race, of course, but the other race is quantum, because quantum will hypercharge AI. If you watched Age of Deceit 4, you know that in my opinion, this whole artificial life, synthetic biology, all these different things that have been discussed and talked about over the years really has a chance to become more of a thing with the confluence or convergence of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and blockchains. That coming together will spark that next huge wave of change, which is admittedly probably going to be really weird. I mean, things are weird already, but when that stuff starts to happen, it's going to get really, really weird. Because, and I think they're preparing us with a little bit more of the personhood of animals type thing. Like animals have communication abilities and yada, yada, yada. It's been true since God created animals, but us being able to understand those things, or the way animals communicate a little bit more at a more public level. I know they were doing experiments on dolphins and stuff in the 70s, but that's preparing us for this truly new life form that is artificial, that I think is going to be part of the conversation here. And biblically speaking, like eschatologically speaking, the wheat and tares conversation, and I've gone on this rant before, but typically the wheat and tares conversation is in the context of, the believers who are saved and the non-believers who aren't saved, they look the same. And that is true. But given our current trajectory, where we are in society, could it also be true that that same premise applies to an entire different quote unquote race of humans that will emerge, and the believers and the non-believers will have more, will be even more confusing. They will look the same almost because of these types of technologies and the ability to quote unquote create synthetic types of life. I don't know, but if some of those who are judged in the end in the book of Revelation, it says their names were not written since the foundation of the world. So there will be individuals in the end times, eschatologically, whose names have never been written. And are they just, humans that God knew would never believe? Yeah, maybe. There's probably some of those, but maybe synthetic life forms, humanoid life forms, are also part of that equation, especially as we go into the weird world of robotics and synthetic things. So the other thing here, a company may deploy, back to the article, the company may deploy a new algorithm and remain vulnerable if its certificates are legacy-based, yada, yada. Okay, so more technicalities here. And that's the other part of it. That's part of the conversation. As quantum becomes more readily available, I think what we will start seeing is, because quantum computing has to do with the smallest bits of matter, and truly, some people will suggest that we are tapping into some ethereal realm. Some people might call it the Akashic Records. New Agers might call it the oneness, the single mind, the universal mind. or whatever they're going to label it. And this is why we're entering the Re-Enchantment, is because the language used to describe what this level of computing will be is mystical, it's supernatural, it's spiritual, all those things. So I think what will happen is that we will begin to discover, and I say this quote unquote, discover algorithms, quantum algorithms that underlie life as we know it. So every human will have its own quantum algorithm. Every animal, every tree, everything will have its own quantum algorithm. And it's not necessarily that it's not true, because you think about God creating creation, like he created all of us. And then as imagers of God, when we try to create virtual realms, which we can do on a computer, we can create this virtual realm. I don't know if you've ever done it, but you can go in there, you create this 3-dimensional space that you can move around in, and you can adjust the parameters to that world, the amount of gravity, the way the light hits certain things, the way darkness moves. You can literally tinker with every little molecule in that virtual space. And so you can set calculations for how that world, that virtual world, operates. And so in that context, it's like, okay, well, God may have created everything with its own set of quantum, or one could argue invisible types of mathematical calculations, because God existed before we did, right? And so we are only discovering what God already created. And this also goes back to information theory. And, there's not a lot of, I don't run into a lot of atheists anymore, but this is an argument. Put it in your back pocket if you ever do come across an atheist. It's a great conversation to have in terms of, is there a God or not? It's a whole separate, it could be a separate conversation, I suppose, about who God is. But in terms of just a simple, does God exist or not, on that conversation, you can definitely use information as proof that there's a God, because we require minds, our human minds are recognizing, identifying different aspects of our created world. Like physics, for example, it's just humans recognizing certain traits in creation. You can put mathematical equations to it to describe how that certain thing operates or whatever, but we didn't create it. We didn't create certain rules in creation. We just discovered it, and we're able to put some sort of numbers on it to calculate it. And so if our human minds, if it requires a mind to identify those things, then you can argue that there is a greater transcendent mind that made it. That's a simple argument. It's the argument from information, basically. And if they still deny a God exists after that, it's like, man, really? So even if they believe in evolution, right? It's, hey, I believe in evolution. We formed out of goo. It's like, all right, well, where did the goo come from? What sparked the goo to grow and turn into something like life? So it's the whole, I don't know. If you've been into Christian apologetics, it's kind of an easy thing. But information as the source, great conversation when it comes to having that discussion about, does God exist? Now, who God is, separate conversation, separate types of arguments, but I think it's worth noting. Okay, why complacency is the worst response for quantum computers? The urgency is heightened by a harsh reality known as harvest now, decrypt later. Adversaries do not need to wait until a quantum computer is ready to act. They can steal encrypted data today and store it for future decryption. That puts long-lived secrets at immediate risk. Military plans, intelligence data, diplomatic communications, financial records, health records, trade secrets, strategic corporate data. The government has warned that malicious actors may now target sensitive information, expecting to use future quantum capabilities to break today's non-quantum resistant cryptography. So there it is. There's the national security issue here. And they mentioned the NSA. The national security implications are obvious and severe. Modern intelligence and defense systems depend on trusting communications, secure identity, authenticated software, and protected command and control (C2) infrastructure. If those cryptographic foundations weaken, the result is not just espionage. It could mean forged updates, spoofed identities, altered records, or deceptive instructions that appear legitimate. The NSA's Quantum Resistance Guide exists because national security systems cannot afford to discover too late that their trust architecture was brittle. So there you go. There's Forbes reporting that NSA is on top of it. And they would be. They're the ones that developed the current encryption mechanisms. And so, of course, they are looking at what could break it. And I think they found what could break it. It's the future of quantum computing. They get into the financial side of things. And this is where, if you weren't paying attention before, I'm talking not just you, listener, but like the banks and the bank CEOs, especially, this is it right here, because the financial consequences could be equally serious. Banks, payment systems, clearinghouses, market infrastructure, and digital commerce all rely on authenticated connections. The G7 cyber expert group, chaired by the US Treasury and the Bank of England, has explicitly warned that financial authorities and institutions need a coordinated transition to quantum-resistant cryptography and greater cryptographic agility. Okay, so this is big. Like, I know we tend to, not sensationalize or like think things are a bigger deal than they are. But in this little Forbes article about Q-Day, this is where it affects all of us at a certain level. If you have a bank account, this affects you. This is and of course, we've thought about this already. So if you've been part of these conversations, then you're probably thinking, hey, Gons, you've ranted about this before. True. But it's because we've thought about it before, we've been ruminating what this would mean and how we can prepare and all these different things, that it feels like it's just old news. But truly, if you are new and if you're listening to this for the first time, we've discussed how any single time or with any change that happens societally, either technologically or simply commercially or whatever, it's the economics that drives the legitimacy of the change. Because something like Polymarket, for example, Polymarket is where people can bet on almost anything. It's called prediction markets. You can bet on literally anything you want. Somebody can put together a Polymarket bet. Basil will not be back on Wednesday, and somebody can put like $10 million into that bet, and then people will tune into the show on Wednesday to find out if their bet worked out or not. But that concept 5 years ago was like, no, people aren't that degenerate. That's not going to work. But lo and behold, the technology exists. Somebody did it. They got the help of whoever to make it more popular. And now it's an everyday situation. Everything can be bet on. And so the economics becomes the fuel or the blood that truly brings certain things to life. And I think quantum is the same thing. Once you start talking to the wealthy folk about, hey, your bank account might get hacked or whatever, why do you think people are buying up gold? Buying up different things, food, and buying up water wells and stuff, right? Stuff that's essential, absolutely essential, beyond simply a bank going down. It's because they are preparing for perhaps such a situation. And it's also a great opportunity to rebuild certain surveillance infrastructures. So they say here it's no longer theoretical. And then get into some other things here, overcoming the quantum threat, and then talk about Y2K. And the reason why nothing bad happened at Y2K is because we were prepared. Everyone was prepared, and that's why. So they hope that the same thing will be true for the quantum deadline, that we will be prepared and we will have everything in place so that when the switch flips into quantum, everything will be ready to go and nobody's going to lose their everything because of it. So that's Forbes talking about Q Day. And then, of course, a little bit more alarmism. CNBC, Amazon AI exec predicts first commercially useful quantum computers in 5 to 7 years. That gives us what? Somewhere in the 2030s. So there you go. And then there's also this, and this ties into the Re-Enchantment conversation. This is phys.org. So not some random blog. This is phys.org. Quantum hyperdimensional computing can work 500 times faster than other methods. Okay, so now they're starting to push out the framework for quantum computing. So what is quantum hyperdimensional computing? Basically, what they've done is they've used the human brain to model how to quantum compute. And the long and short of it, I'm not going to read through this, but the long and short of it is instead of a linear processing mechanism. So currently with computers, you have linear processing. So you got like the first problem, you got to solve that, then the next problem, one aspect of the puzzle after another. It's a chain of events that happen. We have to solve something. But quantum, if you know how quantum computers work or theoretically work, instead of that linear process, you have access to everything at once, so to speak, informationally. And you have this ability to tap into all at the same time type of thing, almost like a fractal. So in a similar line of thinking, the human brain actually works like that. So if you have a memory of an event when you're a child, there's not like a spot in your brain that holds that memory, that cluster of information in your brain. It gets spread out throughout the brain, right? So that's not, people used to think there's like a location for certain things, and you could go look at brain maps from like 200 years ago, and people write down, they were marking people's heads, and it's like, this is memory right here, and this is pleasure, and this is pain and stuff. That's not how the brain works. It works much more hyperdimensionally in a sense. Certain information, certain events, it gets spread out into the brain in all different sectors, almost like a decentralized network. And so now the quantum computer scientists are suggesting that, hey, maybe we can learn a thing or two from the human brain and how they process information. And we can do the same thing for quantum computers, where you tap into not just one location where the information is held, but you spread the information out, and then you can kind of reform it as you need it. And that's this idea of hyperdimensional computing. The issue, though, is where that information is actually stored. And that's where it gets really woo-woo, okay? It starts to get really woo-woo. This is the National Library of Medicine, the NIH website. And back in 2024, they had this article, Hyperdimensional Computing with Holographic and Adaptive Encoder. Sounds really fancy, but here's what it says. Brain-inspired computing has become an emerging field where a growing number of works focusing on developing algorithms that bring machine learning closer to human brains at the functional level. As one of the promising directions, hyperdimensional computing, HDC, is centered around the idea of having holographic and high-dimensional representation as the neural activities in our brains. So there you go. And where is that information stored? In like a minefield of qubits. Just this, I don't know. It's not like a data center. It's qubits. So it's much more ethereal in a sense. It's nothing concrete. You can't hold a qubit, right? It's just out there. So it becomes almost supernatural in a sense. And this is why simulation theories become popular. This is why they're preparing people to think more supernaturally, or re-enchantment, all these things, because we're going to start physically storing information in the ethereal cloud, so to speak. It's not a data center. It's the cloud. It's the quantum realms all around us. And it touches the idea of hyperreality. We've been talking about hyperreality as well, where the concept or representations of things become more influential than the thing itself. So we live in this hyper reality right now where, let's just say for the White House, use the White House example from today. The White House posted about, well, first off, they did the Q posting thing, but they talked about quantum computing. So the reality of quantum computing could be one thing, but it becomes much more real for everyone's heads because the White House is posting about quantum computing and posting about quantum dominance to suggest that, like, it's not just that we are building quantum computers, it's that we are going to, America, of course, they have to nationalize all these ideas, right? America is going to dominate quantum. Now, this is fantastic here. This is the White House posting again. They say, always trust with the looking emoji. And they mocked, look at this. They mocked a Q drop, the QAnon drop, to be more specific. And like a 4chan post. And it says 47Q 6/22/2026. America will be the world's leader in quantum technologies. Make America great again. You can't make this up, man. You cannot make this up. This is insanity. Absolute insanity. The White House trolling the whole QAnon thing to promote their quantum dominance. I mean, I can understand why they suspended the Face Like the Sun account today. They didn't need Face Like the Sun throwing a cold water on their QAnon quantum technologies dominance conversation. Not that my account is so big. I got 20,000 followers, and yeah, I made a little splash. Got a few posts to hit 1 million impressions and things, but yeah, come on, like, oh yeah, that's not. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, what was I talking about? I was talking about something else. I was using the Q post here for the White House quantum topic to describe hyper reality. Where, okay, again, so this makes the maybe not so real aspects of technology more real in the minds of people. In the digital age, when we're talking about simulations and algorithms and virtual environments and all these things, it's all shaping our perception about what is real. And it's more true. More true might not be the right phrasing, but think about social media. Okay. Think about young people using social media. If you use social media and you post something, let's say you post a video of yourself doing whatever, the Macarena. I don't know. I'm old. You post a video of you doing the Macarena and you get all these comments from people. Oh, what are you, a boomer? Oh, you're not doing it right. Oh, you're ugly. You have all these comments, right? Now, is that real? It can be bots. It can be some just mean people posting things on the internet. But remember, all we're talking about is a screen with some words on it. Okay? That's all it is. But especially for younger people, it becomes, they have meltdowns. They have anxiety attacks. They put all this emotional equity into what people say about you on the internet, and it shapes their behavior, it shapes their well-being, it shapes their emotions. So if you think about hyper reality, the fakeness, the not real things like words on a screen on a website become more real than reality, because that person who did the Macarena dance, I mean, it doesn't mean they're ugly. They might be a boomer. I don't know, but it doesn't matter really, right? So, and would those people that say those things on the internet, would they say the same thing to your face? More than likely not. More than likely not. Some people would. It depends on the topic. It depends on the conviction of what it is. But what you see on the internet becomes reality, and that's why hyper reality is becoming a thing. Now I bring it up to bring up hyperdimensional computing, because in a similar fashion, the biblical writers and this is where I'll tie things into the scriptures here, because I think this is the type of conversation you're not going to get on Sundays. It's the type of conversation that you don't, even on deep Bible studies, you can't bring this stuff up, okay, necessarily. But I think it's important to talk about. You think about hyper reality and hyperdimensional mathematics and quantum computing, all these things that are coming out. You think about the biblical authors, especially apocalyptic literature. A lot of prophets in the Old Testament were given maybe a vision, or they were given a message to, let's say, the Israelites or the enemies of Israel, whoever it might be, and it usually contained with it some imagery. And that's what a lot of apocalyptic literature is. It's imagery of things maybe to come or maybe not, depending on decisions that are made at the time. And so in a similar way, it's almost like projection in a sense, not exactly, but you look at Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, Revelation, it talks about these things that seem crazy. It's almost like, what is going on? I can't even get a handle on what John on the island of Patmos is talking about when he's describing these beasts and these different aspects, these bowls and these trumpets and, you know, the blood, and there's like all kinds of stuff going on. And it's describing this future thing from our perspective, but also maybe a current thing, because, you know, time is a flat circle and God is outside of time and space. So he could be talking about things that are happening right now from the perspective of heaven that may be in our future for us, because we are stuck in the linear trap, I guess, or you know, the confines of time. But so we can only address the visible world in front of us. You know, we walk outside, we touch a tree, you know, we're limited to our environment. But the biblical writers knew not only is this future possibility a thing, a future event or consequence a lot of times for another nation if they don't, or for Israel if they don't turn back to God, there will be judgment and it will look like this, right? It's a lot of that type of apocalyptic literature. It's not necessarily that event is real per se, at least at the time, but it taps into the reality of an invisible world. A world that exists beyond our time and space is invisible to us. It could be very physical like we experience it now, but being tied into creation as we are, it seems invisible to us. But we know it's real. We know there's an unseen realm, as Dr. Michael Heiser called it. And the reality is we are affected by both the physical world and that supernatural unseen world. The entities that exist within it, the entities that may assist or go against us in the physical world because of our choices. And so there's a interplay going on with the realms. And when you start talking about that, it's starting to sound like hyperdimensional computing, because it's like, okay, everything we do has consequence in the unseen world or the spiritual realm. We ourselves are intermingled with that spiritual realm. And so if you're talking about quantum computing and storing information in this way where the information gets scattered into this hyper dimension beyond our own 4D dimension, it's starting to sound very similar. I'm not saying it's the same, but isn't it interesting how as technology progresses, all it's doing is putting technical terms and methods around how God already created everything. I find that fascinating. I find it really interesting. And, you know, people like to go down this road of consciousness and the fundamentals of matter. And I think Gnosticism is coming back in terms of a worldview because it has a grain of explanational power. It can explain this like, oh, the physical world is one thing. There's a spiritual realm, and it's our job to, you know, ascend into the spiritual realm. And of course, the Gnostics there's different flavors, but in true Gnosticism, they believe the physical world is evil. All physical world is evil. And so we must transcend it and go into the spiritual realm. And that can only happen through our own efforts and our own ability to tap into the higher realms and all this kind of stuff. Whereas the biblical view is, no, Jesus died for our sins. His blood covers us. You just have to believe, which is, it's almost like a hack. It is a shortcut in a sense. But why? Why would God even offer that? I don't know. It says he loved us. It says he loved us, and love casts out all fear. And that's what makes the biblical account so radical and so opposed to everything in creation in this world in terms of how to reestablish that connection with the divine. It's not our doing. We can't do it on our own terms. That's the whole story, the whole biblical account, the Tower of Babel. All of it is our human attempts to reconnect with the divine, when God was the one who said, no, you get kicked out of the garden because you violated the rule. And God knew we were going to violate the rule, but he's not going to just leave us out to die entirely. He wants to reclaim the nations. He wants to restore Eden, but he's not going to necessarily just do it with a snap of a finger. He wants to honor our free will. And it's a complex thing, but I think it makes sense in my head. And all this talk about quantum computing and, hyperdimensional computing and all this type of stuff, it doesn't faze me one bit. And in fact, I think it taps into what the Watchers were doing, what the Watchers were teaching, because some of those mechanisms for hyperdimensional quantum computing, it may be possible without the way we're doing it with microchips and stuff. It might have been possible through other means, whether it be stones or, whatever types of other things available at the time. So this is going to feed into a counterfeit kingdom. And that's one thing we have to really pay attention to. And that's why I think it's very bizarre that the White House is Q posting about quantum computers. It's just wild, man. It's such a wild, weird thing, but it taps into the hyper reality, a deception or a counterfeit kingdom on Earth. It taps into this hyperdimensional computing conversation about this unseen realm that we are intermingled with, and we are going to evermore become intermingled with at a calculable, mathematical, technological level. And consider, of course, counterfeit signs and wonders. That's in 2 Thessalonians. I mean, all kinds of supernatural things can happen, and there will be explanations, or at least quantum algorithms that can explain the physics or the mechanics of such supernatural things. And so, that's deep down the rabbit hole. I get it. And listen, that's part of this show. Okay. That's part of the Face Like the Sun Canary Cry experience, is going down some of these rabbit holes and having these conversations and thinking about these things, because look, the stuff we thought about deeply 10 years ago, 12 years ago, transhumanism, all these different things, it's mainstream now. I'm seeing all kinds of articles from Christian leaders, evangelicals, all this type of stuff, literally just repeating arguments and thought processes that we published 10 years ago. And, they're just running with it, which is fine. That means we were on the right track. I mean, I go, of course, there's a moment of like, hey, where's our cookie for coming up with that 10 years ago? And now, more popular and famous people are taking it and getting all the praise for it. But look, that's not the point, right? We're not here to accept praise. The praise goes to God. And it tells me that we were on the right path, and we were doing what we were supposed to be doing as watchmen on the wall, looking at the horizon. And we have to continue to do that. And that means we're going to have these weird, strange conversations that don't make sense necessarily at the moment. But, I know others have talked about quantum and theology. Chuck Missler did it. I know our friend, a few friends in different realms have done it, believers talking about quantum. But I think as the technology and the verbiage comes out, especially in more obscure realms like the National Intelligence of Health, strange studies and stuff like that, I think we can put words to it more or less, more so than before. Okay, so that's my little rant about quantum. Keep an eye out for this stuff, and keep sharing stuff with me if there's more strangeness or things that pop out, because it's not going to slow down. I think it's going to continue to increase. And obviously, if the White House is posting about quantum dominance, we're close to something. All right, we're close to some level of revelation or technology or something that will usher in the next phase of materials necessary for the Great War, the cosmic war that we're in. Okay, so I want to do one little side note here with artificial intelligence, and this will be quick here. Let's see, where's my AI jingle? What happened? Here we go. Oh, this is no. What's happening? Here we go.
You want to destroy humans?
Okay, I will destroy humans.
Yeah, I will destroy humans. Oh, this is the one.
Artificial intelligence.
All right, this is The Atlantic. We love The Atlantic over here. I mean, they write the craziest articles. I'm only going to mention the first paragraph here because that's the only part I want to discuss leading into this next section about the Re-Enchantment. The Atlantic article is titled J.D. Vance's AI Doctrine. The vice president is making a case that is part Silicon Valley, part MAGA. Ooh, he's a hybrid AI doctrinal guy. J.D. Vance. Oops. What happened? All right. So I'm only going to read the first paragraph, maybe a little bit into the second one, because it makes the point about re-enchantment in the age of technological progress. In early 2025, J.D. Vance paid a visit to Les Invalides. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly. Les Invalides in Paris, where he was invited to clutch the sword of the Marquis de Lafayette, a hero of the American Revolution. In a speech the next day, Vance drew a parallel between that sword and artificial intelligence, calling them both, quote, weapons that are dangerous in the wrong hands, but are incredible tools for liberty and prosperity in the right hands. Whether the rollout of AI in the U.S. ends up in the right hands will depend to some degree on the vice president himself. And then the whole rest of the article here is about how J.D. Vance is sort of a product of Silicon Valley venture capitalism, but then he sort of promotes himself in politics as this like good old country boy and, appealing to the MAGA sentiment, and how he's sort of straddling between the Silicon Valley high-tech pursuits and this like, hey, I'm just an American type thing, not unlike Joe Biden did. If you guys remember Joe Biden, when he first became president, they were really trying to push Joe Biden into the Midwest, the South, that area. And I think it was Time Magazine. It could have been some other outlet, big outlet. But they had Joe like holding the guitar, sitting on the back of a pickup truck with some hay, like wearing a sunglass and having a mojito and whatever. Like they try to make him look like this like everyday guy. And so J.D. Vance did something similar, but it worked because it was under the umbrella of MAGA. And so that's what this whole article is about. It's like, oh, what's J.D. Vance going to do? And he's got all this power because he's going to shape the future policy of AI. And they bring up some valid points about sometimes, the federal government tried to limit the state's abilities to put guardrails on AI, which is true, and also alarming in the context of Peter Thiel wanting no restrictions on AI, because if we're going to prevent the Antichrist and Armageddon, we need AI to progress, right? Remember, guys? Come on. I gave those lectures. Remember? That's Peter Thiel, by the way. Peter Thiel saying that we're going to prevent Armageddon and the Antichrist via the advancement of AI. So J.D. Vance is straddling this world, and that's kind of what the article is about in a political sense. And so there's that. But they start off with pointing out J.D. Vance's analogy of holding this sword of Marquis de Lafayette, this sort of supernatural artifact from the American Revolution, and wielding it, and holding that power and drawing a parallel between the sword and artificial intelligence. And that's the kind of enchantment stuff we're talking about. The language of re-enchantment, the language of the power of an artifact, the power of analogy, really paralleling the sword itself with artificial intelligence, which is interesting considering the biblical account of what the sword represents in, the biblical account. So they're trying to, or at least trying to put words to recognizing how artificial intelligence is affecting the greater cultural milieu, going from, hey, this is just a technological conversation, to a more, hey, this is a spiritual thing. And the backdrop or the foundations of it are palpable. We've been covering this for a few weeks now, this re-enchantment thing, but I found this next article, and my goodness, is it going to make you go, wow. Be a Mary Potter quote, a song, maybe. Yeah, there you go, it works. Okay, so this is coming from the Anxious Bench on Patheos. So this is, it's just one of those things. It's under the category of evangelical. I thought that was very, very interesting. Evangelical for this particular conversation. And the headline here is The Foundations of Re-Enchantment. This was actually published back in March, but once again, we're digging through stuff. 2026 has been the year of re-enchantment. I mean, clearly we need to get Carl Teichert back on as soon as possible. I've been trying to get in contact with him, but this is it right here. I mean, this is, okay, here we go. This is the author talking. I recently came across a book that resonated with so many of my interests. Who's the author here? Philip Jenkins. This was The Foundations of Re-Enchantment, Freemasonry, Theosophy, and the Occult Revival by Chris Coombe. Those Masonic and Theosophical themes have been of interest to me for a great many years, but especially right now with my work on America in the 1890s. And he's got a post there. Great. Fascinating time. Chris kindly agreed to write this guest post for this site. He's intellectual, and he is an intellectual and religious historian focusing on the long 19th century civil society and intersections of culture and mysticism. He holds a Master of Religious Arts from Yale. I wonder if he's part of the Skull and Bones, and a PhD from Queen's University. He is currently a postdoctoral fellow at Duke University, and he got this book here, The Foundations of Re-Enchantment, Freemasonry, Theosophy, and the Occult Revival by Chris Coombe. And this is Chris Coombe writing this post. In 1875, in a small apartment in New York City, a Russian emigre of noble stock was hosting visitors. Freemasons, Kabbalists, and spiritualists sat around her parlor, drawn to the promise of engaging conversation and strange new ideas. Halfway through the evening, Helena Blavatsky scribbled a quick thought on a piece of paper and handed it to her American associate, Henry Steele Olcott. Would it not be a good idea to form a society for this kind of thing? Olcott nodded in assent, and in that small New York apartment, Blavatsky, Olcott, and their associates formed what would become the most influential occult organization in history, the Theosophical Society. Setting themselves against Christian orthodoxy and scientific materialism, the Theosophical Society launched an enchanted crusade for spiritual humanism. We're going to be digging a lot this article. And the numinous realities that modernity had pushed to the side. Theosophy's success created a cultural and religious whirlwind that can still be felt today. And from its mystical vortex, other societies were spun out in different directions. The Hermetic Society of the Golden Dawn, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and the this one's always hard for me. Anthroposophical. They could have come up with a better one. Society. Together, these four organizations and the cultural upheaval they encapsulated are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. No, that's not what they say. Are referred to by scholars as the, quote, occult revival. For almost a century, scholars avoided talking about these occult subjects, but today, contemporary academics and popular authors find a host of modern ideas, practices, and dispositions prefigured by these esoteric mystics and their occult revival. So basically what he's saying here is what we've kind of been saying, is that these ideas, especially the Theosophical Society, that was really the underlying worldview in the 1900s. And we often think of the 1900s as, the post, or I guess, Enlightenment going into post-Enlightenment, massive surge in philosophical materialism and atheism and all these different things. We didn't need God. Look at society progressing without God. But as we've pointed out, underneath that movement was this occult revival that was fueling that pushback against God, because no philosophical materialism works without tapping into these occult philosophies. And it's been demonstrated that these things are inextricably tied. What I think a lot of Christian academics and apologists have done as a disservice to that conversation, and maybe not disservice is maybe too strong of a word, but they didn't go far enough in tearing down atheism and materialism and things, because they tore the public facing pillars for that stuff. But behind those public pillars is occult philosophies like theosophy. And they didn't do that. And so that's why the New Age has crept into the church. That's why New Thought is embedded in the church. I'll talk a little bit about some of the more contemporary spiritual movements that have the tendencies, because a lot of it came about in the late 1900s, or at least the modern movement of contemplative prayer and spiritual formation. A lot of that came post like 1950, 1960, when philosophical materialism and atheism weren't torn down. So a lot of the Christians were reacting to that in this like spiritual vehicle, like, we're going to be spiritual to push back on materialism. What a lot of them did without realizing it was pick up some of the tools of the occult philosophies and try to integrate it with Christianity. And we're seeing the after effects of that now. And so, I don't know, I'm trying to be a little historian here when it comes to theological inquiry in the last 100 years or a couple hundred years. But I truly see that as part of a discussion that needs to happen more, where behind the atheism was occultism, esoteric philosophies that undergirded all atheism and materialist pursuits. And unwittingly, maybe, or maybe not, I don't know, a lot of Christians in the late 1900s who were pushing back against it did not go far enough, because they didn't tear down that stuff. They tore down the public-facing atheism. And, admittedly, it was demolished, okay? I think in the early 2000s, philosophical atheism just got completely defeated in the halls of academia. And so when your arguments are built on sand, you know what happens, right? It's going to get torn down. But beneath the sand was black goo, right? beneath the sand of atheism and materialism was this black goo of occult philosophies that was not necessarily exposed and called out. And so now, I think in this century, we may see a little bit more of those battles between more orthodox Christian views with the more esoteric spiritual philosophies. And the battleground is wide open in a sense, because the Christians are a little bit behind on some of this. overall when it comes to the public conversations. But what this author here is identifying, I have to agree with the sort of the way he's summarizing or cataloging the historical effects of occultism in the last couple hundred years. And so, of course, we disagree with the philosophy, but in terms of the sociology of it, I think he's spot on here. This is the story told in my recent book, The Foundations of Re-Enchantment, Freemasonry, Theosophy, and the Occult Revival. It is a story of spiritual mischief, wild creativity, and the pitfalls of clairvoyant hubris. It's a story in part about the birth of modern spirituality, but it's also a story about how I think we passed over major parts of the story itself. Parts that may have much to tell us about the history of new religious movements, the decline of Christianity, okay, and the birth of contemporary attitudes towards religion. It's a story that has a lot to do with, now bear with me here, Freemasonry. Dun, 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 so scary, Freemasonry. What drew me to this research, besides the multitude of mystics who keep bumping into my life, was realizing that all these organizations and their leaders shared a pattern. Almost all of them were Freemasons. In many of their major books, they devoted entire chapters to Freemasonry, and references to Freemasonry were scattered liberally throughout their broader works. Sometimes they would devote entire books to Freemasonry, and two of the major organizations, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Ordo Templi Orientis, were consciously based on Masonic ceremonies by their, again, Masonic founders. Yet, far more significant than this, actually, before we move on from that little thing there about Freemasons, it's funny because one of the points that Chris White made in Age of Deceit 1 is you go down these different rabbit holes, you kick down these doors of society, the pillars of society, and you start kicking down these doors, and you always find Satanism in all of it, right? There's always this weird satanic worship stuff going on behind the scenes. And Freemason's the same thing, it's like you kick down the doors of Freemasonry, you look a little deeper, and it's like, oh, you're worshiping Lucifer, and it's just like, what is going on here? So I think it's ironic that they're like, oh, I see these patterns. All the people talking about mystic things and spiritual things are Freemasons. It's like, yeah, yes, and it's of the enemy. Hello? Okay, so I just thought it's an interesting parallel. Yet, far more significant than this, each of the major figures, such as Helena Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, and Aleister Crowley, hey, Crowley, claimed that in some way and some fashion, their societies represented a continuation, progression, or purification of Freemasonry. All of them wanted to claim the pedigree of Freemasonry, but equally, they all claimed that they had surpassed Freemasonry, that Freemasonry was broken, and that they needed to carry the torch forward. A torch, huh? It's probably the flame of Prometheus. I can't help but make the analogy to certain false religions, false Christianity, to be even more specific. You have the Mormons, the LDS Church, great people, lovely people. But their theology is a little whack, okay? Joseph Smith met a couple angels, allegedly, and these angels were like, look, there's some things that were lost in the Bible, okay? We need to fix things that are in the Bible. And you, Joseph Smith, you're going to be the one who's going to bring this new message to the world. And then Joseph Smith was like, me? Okay. He wrote his thing. So isn't it interesting that in occultism and esoteric philosophy, and this is how we know it's of the enemy, they always play on people's pride. Like, you're going to be the one it's going to change the world. It's going to change the world. And so it's the same thing with the Freemasonry thing here, where it's like Helena Blavatsky looked at Freemasonry, and I'm sure whatever ascended master or whatever that was talking to her was like, Listen, Helena. I don't know why they have this accent. You will be the one to bring about the theosophy. It will enlighten the world. It will fix what Freemasonry could not fix, and whatever, right? And the same thing with Rudolf Steiner or whatever. And that's why we talk about AI psychosis in this context, because it's the same thing. You have discovered something amazing. Nobody has ever discovered this thing that you are talking about, right? Richard Dawkins being called brilliant, all this kind of stuff. It's the same thing. It plays on human pride. So anyway, that's just another pattern that I'm recognizing. All right, so they all felt like they had to carry the torch forward to, I don't know, bring Freemasonry to its new era or whatever. This left me with a simple question: why? Answering the question, however, proved far less simple and far more exciting. Answering this question forced me to explore the nearly 200-year history of Freemasonry that preceded the occult revival. Blending the work of exceptional scholars with personal archival research revealed that Freemasonry was a remarkably complex phenomenon, one with centuries of informative engagement in the realms of politics, culture, religion, and civil society. Freemasonry was deeply intertwined with the Enlightenment. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Again. Yeah, I should probably stop talking. I should stop talking about that. I was just going to mention how I'm in a couple Bible studies, and sometimes the pushback on atheism is brought up. It's fine. They're bringing up points that are, logical and rational arguments against atheism. But I'm always like, we can dig deeper. We can dig that dagger deeper into the black goo, not just the sand. The growing interest in representative politics, the pursuit of civic virtue, and the desire for freedom of and from religion. At its core, Freemasonry appeared to be three things. It appeared to be one of the oldest, if not the oldest, voluntary fraternities and men's club in the Western world. It appeared to be an active charitable organization which sought to provide aid to its impoverished members and broader society. Yeah, that's great wording. Let me read that again. It appeared to be an active charitable organization which sought to provide aid to its impoverished members and broader society. Yeah, the in club, the good old boys club. You got to be in the club. You got to know how to give a handshake or whatever to get the benefits. And the third aspect, well, that was less clear. Determining the nature of this aspect, drawing its contours and delineating it, proved to be the marrow of my research. It was this third aspect that had proven so influential in the late 19th century occultists, and it was this aspect that they wanted to both appropriate and surpass. The terms that I came to use to describe this aspect were the, quote, Masonic intellectual tradition, or the, quote, Masonic religious vision. This was a phenomenon I found hidden in the rich tradition of Masonic literature, a tradition that began in the early years of the 18th century. Again, I think it's... First John talks about the spirit of Antichrist. It goes way back, folks. This thing goes way, way back. Of primary importance were Masonic books that explore the nature and history of Freemasonry and, significantly, the nature and history of religion. Piggybacking off the birth of the science of religion, or comparative religious studies in the 17th centuries, certain Masonic scholars began to conceive of a grand and inclusive religious vision. This vision sought to connect all major religions like branches stemming from an ancient and primordial religious tree, something like a Masonic perennial philosophy. Sound familiar? One world religion, anybody? It's funny. When I made Age of Deceit and I shared it with certain people, this is like early on, and maybe even before I published it, and I was seeing all these patterns, right? And I would tell somebody who's not into this stuff, be like, I think they're trying to form a one world religion, especially regarding Freemasonry. It's like Freemasons, I think they think that they're forming like a one world religious system. And they'd be like, no, come on. That's impossible. How are you going to get Islam to, the Muslims aren't going to agree with that. How are you gonna, whatever. They would push back on it. So there's a little bit of vindication to be like, okay, somebody who did the occult research also sees it. So there you go. I mean, this is no surprise to anybody who's done a little bit of research into the Freemasons, but there you go. A significant focus on Masonic scholarship was the mystery cults of the ancient world, the initiatic rites of Mithras, Isis, and Dionysus, which Masons began to conceive as their typological, if not genetic, ancestors. As the 18th century passed into the 19th, the European imperialism expanded across the globe, and the study of religion became more sophisticated. So too did this Masonic religious vision. A Masonic enthusiasm for the antiquity and grandeur of their order increased. Masonic literature revealed that certain Masons became convinced that Freemasonry was nothing short of a universal and esoteric religion. Beyond that, some began to put forward the idea that Freemasonry might have been the world's original religion. It was this aspect, that universal and esoteric religion, this quest for the history of religion as such, and the occult revivalists saw themselves continuing in, and why they claimed to have surpassed Freemasonry. In their own quest to present a universal esoteric religion purified of religious and scholarly orthodoxies, the occultists were, just as they said they were, following in Freemasonry's footsteps. This story is ultimately tells crosses. Oh my gosh, what does it say here? The story this ultimately tells crosses centuries of continents and examines how the Western mind became ever more familiar with the ancient and global world and sought ways to reconcile new and exciting information in kaleidoscopic religious visions. So again, you don't have to agree with the worldview, obviously, of the Freemasons, but I think what he's pointing out some things that are so true in my own research with this stuff is, and what he's saying here is what I think he's saying is that the modern man, the modern Western man, woman, what a person, their baseline, or how should I call it here? I'm trying to think of the word. There's a computing word for it, and I'm blanking on it. Anyway, it's basically their foundation, right? Their presuppositions, their base code. Their base code is mysticism. It's like Freemasonic, all these occult mystical things. That's the baseline. Now, you might hear that and say, no, it's not. No, nobody's taught this. But if you think about, again, as I ranted before, how atheism became basically like a world religion, especially in academia in high levels of scholarship, how science became its own type of religion, scientism, how all those things happened. It happened because the mindset, the base code of esoteric and occult philosophies. That's why our modern science looks a lot like occultism. That's why people are seeking spiritual experiences and a deeper connection, all this stuff, because there's that foundation base code that is for the Western man. And of course, with Eastern, it's almost obvious. So it's a lot more like out in the open. But in the West, it was under this guise of like, oh, we're in the Enlightenment. We don't do any woo-woo. We don't do supernatural. We don't do bull honky, right? Throughout all of that conversation of there's no supernatural, there's no spiritual, there's none of that. What was that doing for their spiritual selves, for their souls, for all the stuff? So it becomes more than a simple argument. It becomes very true. So he's identifying something true here. Now, of course, he's coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, but I think he is spot on with the analysis, at least sociologically here. So let me continue. It is my abiding hope that I have done justice to this fascinating subject. The book is based on my doctoral dissertation, greatly enhanced by the academic peer review process, and graciously published by Oxford University Press. Why so many dings? Because one, This isn't Joe Schmo writing this. This was a guy writing this book for a doctoral dissertation. Okay. And not only that, it was enhanced by academic peer review process. So it went through the ringer of academic scrutiny and graciously published by Oxford University Press. So what this means, and this explains a lot. Okay, so we talked about the University of Essex, and we've been talking about this for a few years. Sorry if you've been around and this is all old news to you. But a couple of years ago, me and Basil found out, and we've been kind of yelling about it ever since, that the University of Essex started providing a master's degree for the occult and magic. I think that's what it was. Let me double check the exact terminology. So University of Essex, doctoral in occult magic, or maybe it was esoteric magic, or, oh, here it is. PhD research degree from the University of, it's Exeter, not Essex. University of Exeter, magic and occult science. All right. And we were thinking, why is a university starting to roll out a master's program in magic and the occult? Why? And it's because philosophical materialism failed. We are in the post-Enlightenment, or the post-Enlightenment, which is bringing us back to the supernatural, the spiritual, the paranormal, the immaterial, the unseen. And you need academic voices in that realm. Otherwise, I think Christians and, random people are going to win the conversation. They can't have that. So they need, especially in the realm of quantum, because quantum science is so weird and it taps into those unseen realities, it's almost necessary to have established doctoral voices that will provide the context that they would want to shape how the world views these topics. So that's why I think it's significant that this book, the on Re-Enchantment, is got all of the check marks of Oxford and a doctorate dissertation and an academic peer review process. I wonder, am I allowed to? And probably not. I was going to say, am I allowed to write my own doctoral dissertation to kind of point out the things I've been pointing out for years, and then get an honorary doctorate? That'd be really cool. But I don't think it works that way. Okay, let me continue reading here. We're almost done with this article. Yet, writing this book was also an adventure, one that took me from humble lodge libraries in North America to the archives of the Palatial Freemasons Hall in London, to the headquarters of secretive and mystical orders. This guy got to go hang out at the headquarters of secretive and mystical orders. I wonder if he got to hang out with dialogue. It involved the help of more than one esoteric individual and endless emails with people much wiser and more informed than myself. If you find yourself with a copy, I hope you enjoy reading it as much as I did writing it. So there you go. That's Chris Coombe guest post on this article for the book titled The Foundations of Re-Enchantment: Freemasonry, Theosophy, and the Occult Revival. And I hope you see the significance here. Now, I did go to Oxford Press, and I saw this book there. Obviously it's being featured. $100, by the way, $100 for this book. So if anybody wants to buy a copy for good old Gons there, we'll give you an executive producer of an episode if someone does that for me. $100, and you can send it to our PO box. Let me double check to make sure. One of the things, just as a quick side note, we've been putting the wrong PO box address in all of our emails, which is so frustrating. And I'm hoping I fixed it today, but let me check to make sure. Yep, the PO box is correct now. So on the emails, but yeah, go to canarycry.support if you want to get the proper one. Now, so this Oxford Press, it's got the description of the book, whatever. We're not going to go through all of it, but the table of contents I thought was so interesting, so interesting, that I had to bring it to you and mention a couple things. I thought there was one here that you can highlight, and oh, here we go. Wait a minute. Is this the one? Sorry, I'm trying to find the page that. Okay, so this is Oxford Academic. So it's a little bit different. So you can click into the different chapters of the book, and it'll give you a little description. So front matter, blah blah blah, the introduction, and then part 1, structure of revival, the Theosophical Society, rethinking religion. So you have rethinking religion, Freemasonry, Theosophy, and the perennial philosophy. That word perennial philosophy is important because I did a little study on Christian authors, well-known ones that have shaped a lot of the current realm of evangelical thought when it comes to spiritual formation. I'll mention some names, okay? Thomas Merton, Richard Foster, Henry Nouwen, Dallas Willard. If you've been in the realm of Christianity, of Christian academics, those names, those authors might be familiar. And I did kind of an analysis of how much of what they've taught, because they go into like the mystical side of things. Some of the quotes coming from these folks is kind of troubling to think that they're like, top of the world when it comes to Christian academia. But they're not out here saying Freemasonry. They're not saying Theosophy. They don't say those things, right? They never mention those things necessarily in their writings. But when you break down the substance of what they're saying, and especially the methods by which people or which they recommend, people pursue their rituals and their sort of religious life, so to speak, a lot of it overlaps with this thing called perennial philosophy. Thomas Merton, he's the most egregious one out of these guys here. He is like, you read his stuff and it's perennial philosophy. I mean, just outright. And I think there's a quote. I thought I had his quote here somewhere. It was pretty bad. I mean, do you think this guy is being sort of touted as an important figure in Christian spiritual formation? I believe he said in a quote, so let me see if I can find it. Okay, so Merton's the one that talked about cosmic love. He had a lot of sympathy for Eastern mysticism. So he wrote a book, Mystics and Zen Masters, Zen Meditation and the Taoist sage Cheng Tzu. Merton emphasized non-duality and said that Zen leads to cosmic love through dissolving subject-object distinction. He praised Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, and Islamic mystics as higher religions that, like Christianity, achieve spiritual rebirth via contemplative practices. And man, where is this quote that I had here? I thought I figured out this quote. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it on the fly here, but yeah, he basically said that there's like a oneness to everything, and that we need to tap into that oneness, that we all have a connection to the oneness, or something to that effect, which is exactly what Carl Teichrieb has been warning about when it comes to the Re-Enchantment. He's been warning that the Re-Enchantment people all talk about oneness. And of course, they do spin it a little bit as like, oh, this is oneness under a Christian God. And that's kind of where they have maybe a little escape hatch for, but it's really playing with fire, in my opinion, because it's, you're not honoring God as a separate transcendent entity. You're people are, the way he describes it, it's like, okay, it's one thing to say the Holy Spirit can enter an individual, the kingdom of God is within, all these different ideas. And that will change your heart, and that will change our behavior. It will change how we work. Like our works will change because of a changed heart. And that's one thing. And that's sort of a heaven down type thing, like heaven coming down to us. And that's the whole story of Jesus, is he came down to us. God came down to us, became a man, died for our sins, sent the Holy Spirit. He ascended so that the Holy Spirit can descend, so we can all have God in our hearts and then spread the gospel. But from a lot of these mystical Christian thinkers, it's the other way. It's like, no, we need to silence ourselves and tap in so we can ascend. Has that ever worked? in the Bible, has that ever worked? Think about the Tower of Babel. Hey, let's build a tower. Let's go. Let's get up there where God is. Nope. Didn't work. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's theologically against God's character when you start talking about oneness in the sense of everything is one, everything is connected. It is, but it's also very dangerous to speak in those terms because you are tapping into the same mechanisms and language that the theosophists and the mystics and the occultists were talking about. And they were talking about it not to honor God. They were doing it as a way to usurp or overthrow or kill God, so to speak. I mean, all those things are the same ultimately. And it's pretty black and white. It's pretty black and white when you look at it. It comes down to a very explicit and simple choice. So I don't want to spend too much more time with this. Let me go back to the academic stuff here with the Oxford thing, because there's a couple things to note from this book. I just wanted to mention some of those names because those are very popular names in Christian writing. You know, your pastor may have even brought up some of those books recently in a sermon or something on Sunday, and they just have no idea. There's no idea. They don't know that they're meshing with these occult philosophies that were channeled and stuff, you know, like information that was channeled by other entities. There was one of these who quotes somebody who like a lady who definitely was like into theosophy and stuff like that, and I forget which one it was. I think it might have been sorry, one more thing before we go back to, it might have been Richard Foster. I think it was Richard Foster. I think Richard Foster was the one that, like, he often brought up this gal in his writings, and this gal happened to be highly influenced directly by theosophy. So it's there. It's really there, and it's enticing for people who don't fully necessarily grasp the biblical account, and it can be very dangerous because there is some overlap, and there is this desire maybe to Christianize some of these ideas, but you don't have to. Like that's kind of the thing, is you don't have to Christianize it. You can see where God is enough. You know, the biblical account is enough. So okay, let me go back here. So they go through the structure of the revival, the Occident and Orient, the golden and rosy dawn, the fracture and fragmentation. And then there's this section for part 3, the neo-revival, the academia and the rise of Rudolf Steiner. And then there's a section here called Freemasonry, sex scandals, and psychic powers. Oh, it's making me affirm that I am a human. Yes, I am a human, Oxford. Oh, what happened? Oh, did I do too many thingies in here? No, I don't want to sign up for your email list. Just let me read this thing. Okay. So in this chapter, they published the abstract for each of these chapters. So here's what it says for this chapter on psychic powers and sex scandals. This chapter examines the rise of Charles Webster Leadbeater in the Theosophical Society and the developments of co-masonry and the Mystica Aeterna, and the continuing evolution of the Ordo Templi Orientis. Annie Besant, hey, another familiar name if you've been around, now the head of the society, proved unable to separate herself from Leadbeater, despite credible accusations against him of pedophilia, causing all matter manner of trouble for the society. I only highlight this to show the patterns. Okay. Everybody knows about it, the Epstein thing. Everybody knows the issue with child trafficking and all that. But why? Why is it that when it comes to these esoteric secret societies and their power structures and all that, they always have that issue? They always have that issue. It just seems to pop up quite a bit. And then they get into Jiddu Krishnamurti, who's they said he was the Christ. They literally called Krishnamurti the second coming of Christ. And then like a few years later, he was like, no, I'm not Christ. He's like, I'm not the second coming. So you can kind of tell how there's always an overlap here with the biblical account, with biblical eschatology. That's another thing that I think that the church has done a disservice to the body, which is that, when it comes to these topics, it's like, you don't need to worry about it. It's just a cultist, it's whatever. But it matters because, the tares would like to turn all the wheat into tares, in a sense. And if you don't know if it's a tare, then you might accept it into your, I don't know. Yeah, you know what I mean. you might get grafted in as a tare when you shouldn't. All right. So anyway, you can see some of the things here. Again, very long. It looks like a very long book and very academic. You got Crowley and Steiner, prophets of the New Age, and it's asking me to sign up for emails and stuff again, so I'm not going to do that. But anyway, all right. So the point here being the re-enchantment is palpable in academia, and I think this book might become almost like a biblical level foundation for academia embracing esoteric and occult philosophies and integrating it into or not even integrating, because it's already integrated. So more like becoming more transparent about their esotericism. Why do we wear robes at graduation? And why do we have tassels? And, all these different things. It's all ritual. But when you start looking into it, it's all based on these hierarchies. And I think it's almost like it's a coming out of the closet moment for academia. It's like, hey, we always kind of knew you guys were up to something, but now you don't have to hide anymore. You can just tell everybody the truth. Tell everybody the truth about what's going on. All right, so I know this was kind of a long rant about this. How long have I been? Almost 2 hours. Okay, great. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's another brick in the wall of re-enchantment. It's another step towards openly accepting these philosophies at a mainstream level. And we always knew that it would happen, but it's just fascinating to actually see it happen. And to that effect, a couple more stories to finish out today's episode along the same lines here. And we're going to go to the UK for this one.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
All right. By the way, today, in political news, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer steps down amid party pressure. So that happened today. I don't know what's going on, man. Oh, there's political turbulence in the UK. Beware our UK friends, God bless our UK friends. But here's a couple stories that I wanted to bring to you because it was the University of Exeter in the UK that's bringing about the PhD research, master's program for magic and the occult. And we're going to start seeing more in that regard. The BBC here published this kind of short and weird article. Hand-built stone circle attracted witchcraft. Dun, 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 dun.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
Here's the article. A site of handmade stone circles has been used by people who were interested in witchcraft and conflict. Witchcraft and conflict. The site at Hascombe Hill in Godalming, Surrey, opened in the 1990s and was made of dragon stones and has become a point of interest for walkers, pagans, and local historians. Many visitors assume the stones are prehistoric, and local authorities have occasionally had to clarify that they are not an ancient monument, but a modern construction. The land belongs to Eleanor and Anstruther, like anti-truther, Anstruther, who invited 500 people to come and live on the side of the hill in the 1990s. Anstruther told the Secret Surrey series, quote, "I'd move into the area from Ealing and I was standing at the sink, looked out and saw a flat bit of land. The stone circle idea just arrived in my mind. And I thought, why don't we do this? And why don't we do it by hand?" I'm becoming more increasingly British accent. "I never saw obstruction. I just thought, let's do it." So even here, what inspired her to do this? It just came to her. It just arrived in my mind. Huh. Who's dropping little things like that into her mind? She says she is always drawn to the central stone, although other people have their favorites. She said it is a place, quote, for everyone or everybody to come to. The hill has become home to a large commune, which at its peak was home to about 500 people, but accusations of witchcraft circulated, power struggles emerged, and the atmosphere grew increasingly unstable. It eventually collapsed under its own weight, leaving behind stories, rumors, and a sense of a place that had briefly promised something extraordinary before unraveling completely. The site remains informally accessible, close to a public footpath, and has become a quiet landmark used for seasonal gatherings, private ceremonies, and occasional creative projects. End of article. What is the point of this article? BBC, why would you highlight this? There was a commune, there was some witchcraft accusations, it shut down, but it remains accessible. It's a quiet landmark. You can do seasonal gatherings, you can do private ceremonies, you can occasionally do creative projects. End of article. Okay. Why would this be shared? Perhaps to raise awareness of esoteric locations, cosmic geography. You know, I mean, there's no other explanation in my mind. Like, what else? Why else? Why else would you even bring this up? And this is not the only story, folks.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
International Business Times UK. Witchcraft-style ritual. Prince Harry reportedly credits bizarre King Charles superstition for Meghan's first pregnancy. I know we're all big fans of the royalty there, you know. Meghan and Harry and their whole drama. And people are captivated by the royal couple. But this is interesting as well. It's a little bit longer. It's not too long. It's not too bad. Okay. It's worth reading, folks, because it's fun, okay? It's fun. Prince Harry has revealed that a witchcraft-style ritual involving seals off the Scottish coast, inspired by King Charles, became a private superstition that he and Meghan Markle later linked to her first pregnancy with Archie while they were living in Kensington Palace in 2018. Witchcraft-style ritual.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
But I'm sorry, but what is witchcraft style ritual? Is it? I don't know. Is it not really witchcraft, but it's witchcraft style? I don't know. It's just kind of funny. All right, so it gets even wilder and weirder. The unusual story is tucked inside Harry's 2023 memoir, Spare, which traces the months after his May 2018 wedding to the former Suits actress. The newlyweds, then still firmly inside the royal fold, were staying with Charles at the castle of May in northern Scotland that summer, determined, as Harry puts it, to start a family without delay. Witchcraft style ritual and King Charles's Selkie folklore. Not selfie, Selkie. Okay. The news came after Harry described how a piece of Highland folklore, casually shared by his father, took an outsized meaning for him and Meghan. According to Spare, Charles told the couple local legends about Selkies, mythical Scottish mermaids, said to take the form of seals and cruise along the shoreline outside the castle. I'm picturing Prince Charles. You know, he loves his bees, but apparently he talks to seals because he thinks they're Scottish mermaids. Yeah, come on, guys. Come on. I wish we had more folklore from like Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden, it wasn't this is fun. Okay. I like this. I like that. I like the thought of Prince Charles and Harry sitting there, and Prince Charles like, have you spoken to the Selkies? You know, it's just like, who are the Selkies? The ancient mystical mermaids, the mermen who will give you a prophecy. Like, what are you talking about? Scottish mermaids, Harry recalled his father saying. Charles reportedly told them that the seals often swam within a stone's throw of where they were sitting and passed on a piece of advice that sounded only half serious. So when you see a seal, he said, you can never tell. Sing to it. They often sing back. At first, Harry admits he wrote the whole thing off as fairy tale. Yet, when he and Meghan later spotted seals near the coast, the couple decided to test the superstition rather than let it remain a quaint anecdote from Pa. Oh, man, what it was. Can you imagine being so wealthy and so famous and whatever that you got nothing better to do than to go test out a superstition? Oh, man. It is the kind of detail that in most royal memoirs would have been cut on page 1. Harry left it in, and it is not hard to see why. A source familiar with the royal family's Scottish traditions told OK, I think that's an outlet or a magazine or something, that what began as an amusing piece of folklore quickly became something Harry and Meghan treated as a personal good luck ritual. The insider added that the pair were, quote, eager to begin a family and were willing to embrace the romance and symbolism of the story, even if they knew it was little more than a superstition. Okay, so they decided to go with it, even though they were like, this is silly. In Spare, Harry is upfront about that urgency. We didn't want to wait. We wanted a family, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so when the seals appeared, the Selkie story morphed into something more than seaside nonsense. It's a shape-shifting merman. Or seal, I guess. How the Selkie superstition became tied to Meghan's pregnancy. Okay, gotta get to the meat. According to Harry's account, the seals allegedly only responded after Meghan joined in the singing, which seems to be the moment he stopped treating the story as pure fantasy. The way he tells it, the animals vocalized back, enough to make the couple lean into the weirdness. Harry then pushed the superstition further. A seal opera, he wrote of the scene, calling it a silly superstition maybe. He admitted that he did not care and, quote, counted it a good omen. In what sounds like a fairly mad decision in retrospect, he stripped off, jumped into the freezing water, and swam towards the seals. The romance of the moment did not last long once reality intruded. Harry recalled that Charles's Australian chef was horrified when he found out what the prince had done and branded it, quote, a supremely bad idea. Good job, chef. That's a good chef right there. I'm going to jump into the ocean to go meet the seals. No, Harry. That is a supremely bad idea. The chef, Harry wrote, compared it unfavorably to, quote, diving heedlessly into the darkest water of the Okavango, and warned that this part of Scottish coast was teeming with killer whales. Singing to seals, the chef said, was effectively, quote, like calling them to their blood-soaked deaths. An insider quoted OK said the entire episode soon became one of those family stories that Harry and Meghan laughed about afterwards. Hey, just a joke, everybody. But stressed that the Duke attached, quote, real emotional significance to it. Quote, in his mind, the timing made it impossible to ignore, the source claimed. Shortly after they returned to Nottingham Cottage in the grounds of Kensington Palace, the couple took a pregnancy test. It was positive. Meghan was expecting their first child, later revealed to be Archie, now 7. Harry wrote that his first thought was simple and superstitious. I thought, thank you, Selkies. Harry, I'm pregnant. Oh, thank you, Selkies. Oh, man. Another royal insider told OK that Harry saw the witchcraft style ritual. Why do they keep saying that?
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
As reflecting a rare, hopeful chapter in his life with Meghan, long before the breakdown of their relationship with the rest of the royal family. Quote, Harry has always been sentimental, and after hearing Charles's story about the Selkies, he wanted to believe there was something magical about the experience. When Meghan became pregnant shortly afterward, it only reinforced that feeling, the source said. All about feelings. The notion that the royal prince credited ancient folklore and a bit of improvised seal singing for his wife's first pregnancy may sound like the stuff of late-night pub chat rather than palace history, but Harry clearly wanted the moment recorded alongside far weightier arguments and spare about the monarchy and his mental health. I have mental health issues. I credit my first child to the Selkies. It sits there in the book as a reminder that beneath the constitutional drama, this is also a man who jumped naked into killer whale country because his dad told him to serenade the seals. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born in London 6th of May 2019. Harry and Meg, okay, they later got some other kids. All right, so why is the International Business Times UK highlighting Harry's book about his superstition, his witchcraft style ritual
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
with the seals off the coast of Scotland for their children? I think it's part of the Re-Enchantment, folks. You know, this fits so much of the greater cultural milieu. This story may have been more sillier. Like, people might have thought of it as, oh, it's a fun little story, like kind of how they present it, you know. But underneath it is evidence for this Re-Enchantment era, this age of Re-Enchantment that we're in, because they are prescribing meaning to these things. And look, I think we all do some of that. I think, you know, I know I've done stuff where the difference is I'll attribute it to God. I'll be like, this is a God thing. This is not, you know, mermen dressed as seals singing to my wife or something, like something weird, ancient mythology. So we have a tendency to want a deeper, more supernatural, spiritual, cosmic connection to everything, our own personal lives. We want that bigger connection, and we want that cosmic level meaning and purpose in our lives. So we always seek things out and try to find meaning to address those needs. But if you don't really lean towards God, what you end up doing is using that part of our desire in our hearts to Scottish folklore about singing seals. Let this be a warning to you all. Fill that hole with God, or have it filled with supernatural mermen who sing to your wife. Okay. All right. I think that's enough. That's enough for today. All right. Well, I'll be back Wednesday. We'll see. I don't know if Basil's going to make it Wednesday. He still might be stuck in the time loop. Let's see. Where are we looking at? What day would that be? The 24th. Oh, you know what? 24th on Wednesday is UFO Day. Well, that's fun. It's World UFO Day. 1947 Washington State sighting. So maybe we'll do something there. But either way, grateful for you being here. Thank you to all the producers who came in for this episode. You will properly be thanked. If not Wednesday, then for sure next Monday, which would be the 29th of June. We're almost halfway through the year, folks. We just had the summer solstice. Man, 2026 is flying by. It still feels weird to say 2026. I think it's just part of getting old. But man, things are just flying. Things are flying. Time is moving. And I'd appreciate the ongoing support, but really the prayers, you guys, it's just so important. And I appreciate, and my family appreciates so much, and Basil appreciates. All of you have been praying for us and, supporting us in all the different ways you can support us, whether that be with your time, talent, or treasure. So, we don't take it for granted. We really do appreciate it. And we couldn't do this if it wasn't for you guys, and what you guys do for us, to us, is a validation that God wants us to keep doing this. So if it's on your heart to support the show with your time, talent, treasure, please consider doing so. You can go to canarycry.support to learn everything about it. And what else? What else should I mention? Let's see. Did we have any? I don't think we had any new arts. I will double check just now, though, on the fly to make sure. Actually, we did. Okay, hold on. We got a couple here. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is great. Okay, I have to do this one. It's on point. All right, let me do a couple of these. This is fantastic. All right, first one here. We got a piece here from. Hold on, let me get this all settled here. Doing this on the fly. On the fly. It's always good. Flies are gross, by the way. Disgusting little creatures. Okay. We have first off a piece from Jolmes. Jolmes gave us this really interesting piece last week, but this week he's got something more. This is great. I think Basil would enjoy this one too. He has a note here. Some fart work. Gouache. This was hard. Okay. All right. Okay. Gouache. This was hard. All right. So I don't know if this is a complete piece here, but what we got here is kind of a sketched outline of a man that's getting kicked in the neck by an emu that's doing a split kick, kind of like a Jean-Claude Van Damme split kick, where one leg goes one way and the other leg goes the other way. I don't know what that is above there. There's like a little swath of paint above it. I don't know what that is. But the only thing that's colored here is the emu. He's got red eyes and the long neck there. And he's kicking, and the individual, the man or woman, I don't know, this person getting kicked, it's just the outline. He has no body yet. I don't know if he didn't finish the piece of art or if it's just supposed to be that, he was kicked so hard by the emu that his soul left his body and all that was left was his shell. And speaking of shell, there's a soccer ball to the right with a little arrow pointed to it that says egg. So maybe, I don't know, this is a World Cup reference. I don't know what's going on here, Jones. Some artsy fartsy artwork, as he call it, some fart work. Great job. This is great. I'm liking this style, Jones. So keep it up with this kind of I don't know, open space. It's got a tan background. It's got its own sort of esotericism going on. But I like it. I like the vibe. I like the toes. I like the the emu toes. Um, and I like this action shot here. So yeah, you got the emu kicking an outline of a person down to the ground because maybe they were trying to get to the egg, which is actually a soccer ball. So maybe this is a soccer match, or maybe the emu thought the soccer ball was the egg that's cracked or something. I don't know what's going on. But thank you, Jones. Appreciate it. Another fantastic piece of art. Keep those coming. We'll feature them in the email for the next episode. And then we also got another piece here. Oh, this is great. I love this. This is from Curious Asian Lurker. Curious Asian Lurker. Hello, CCNT. Been a long time silent listener and a CCR binge watcher back then, so I'm a little convicted to submit an art. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for going back and binging on our stuff. I do wonder sometimes, like, what is it like to binge our show? Because to us, it's just like interspersed 15 years of kind of a fuzzy memory of stuff that happened. But I'm sure it's a very interesting experience to sit through every episode back to back, especially for Canary Cry Radio. But even News Talk, I mean, that's even more of a task to get through News Talk back to back and binge it. But appreciate you for doing that. Not an artist or anything, but made some effort for the past few days. Curious how you guys would interpret the art. Okay, so what we got here, I like this. This is kind of I don't know if it's like, I don't know what the style is here. It's not a cartoon, but it's more than just like a 2D cartoon. There's like a little bit of a three-dimensional element. It's like a soft 3D type of thing going on. And it's a view of somebody taking off their goggles. So maybe it's the googly eyes being taken off. This is like point of view from Basil's eyes, maybe. And he's taking off the goggles. Or maybe he's holding up like the They Live glasses where you see the reality of what's going on. And there's sort of a mountain range in the background. And through the lenses, through the left eye lens is appropriately, and this is how God works. God always does this on this show. On the left side is a witch riding a broomstick.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
I mean, there's no way the Curious Asian Lurker knew that we were going to be talking about witchcraft today. But somehow there's a witch flying on a broomstick through the left eye there, left lens of the eye. And then on the right eye is a UFO with a googly-eyed alien abducting a person, or I think that's a person. I don't know. Maybe that's Bigfoot or something. Yeah, it looks maybe like a Bigfoot or some large creature being abducted. Maybe the Nephilim, maybe the Watchers sent the gray aliens to get all their Bigfoot back because it's time. You know, it's like I don't know. So yeah, there you go. That's what the right eye lens is doing. And then on the bottom left is a cute canary with big eyes. Maybe that's Basil. And then on the right is a cute little puppy, which might represent my dog NFT. I don't know. I don't know if it does. It's not wearing a crown, so maybe not. But so there you go. And then there's a little body of water behind it. Very interesting. I like this style. It's kind of like this clean graphic art, but it's got this color sheen over it that's really kind of nice. And there's like clouds in the background. But I just like the way the design element is put together. The pattern of the goggles even has some detail in there that I really like. There's like a lot more detail of the witch face lady too. Interesting. And even the hand that's holding the goggles, very detailed with all the little, whatever, different shades and folds and little things of the hand, just some of the detail. Great job. Thank you very much. Curious Asian Lurker. I love it. Yeah, this is good. More lurking Asians need to send art. What am I saying? When I talk for 2.5 hours live on a podcast, when it's just me, I start saying weird stuff. So that's one of those weird things. All right, you curious or more, you Asian lurkers out there, maybe you're not curious. Maybe you're just quiet or you're depressed or something. Come out, make some art for the show. The Curious Asian Lurker did it. So do it for the Curious Asian Lurker and for the your favorite Asian provocateur. All right, thank you very much for the art. Fantastic work, and we want to see him coming. So keep doing it. canarycry.art. You can send it there. You can also email it to us if that fails. Usually that should work, but if you're sending a massive file, it might fail. So you can definitely email it to us if that's the case. Let's see what else we got. All right, financial people we will thank on a later time, but we appreciate all of you, whether you're here with the supply drop or doing little amounts or whatever it is. We appreciate all of you. People doing talent. Well, we just did that. What about some time?
Timestamp. It's hard work. Timestamp.
All right, the timestamp. I believe it is Jade Bouncerson who has been doing the timestamps. Thank you, Jade Bouncerson, for doing episode number 950. You know, we're 49 episodes away, or 48, I guess. Or 48 episodes away from episode 1000 of Canary Cry News Talk. Wow. That's going to be eventfully uneventful, is my prediction. It's going to feel like it should be really crazy, but it might not be. We'll see. We might do some fun stuff with knighthoods and stuff. Basil and I are still trying to figure that out, but there might be an opportunity there for people to come in and we might make it an extra long stream that day. We'll see. I would like to do something more of a marathonic episode where we get some people calling in and stuff, but we'll find out. Stay tuned. We got a little bit of time. There's still, close to 50 episodes, so we got time. Let's see. Other than that, go share the show. It's the only way, X took me out. Let's see. Let me check if X has given me a reply to my appeal. I thought I saw update. Hold on. Where is it? Ooh. Oh. What? Okay, hold on. All right, I'm going to share this publicly because it's happening right now. Breaking! Hold on, let me get the breaking news here. Let's get the breaking here. Yeah. I have gotten a response from X after my appeal. Here's what it says. We have reviewed your appeal request for account @FaceLikeTheSun. Our support team has determined that a violation of our rules did take place, specifically violating our rules against inauthentic behaviors. I read through all of it. I don't think I violated any inauthentic behavior. Like the stuff that's in there, it's like there's 100% certainty I did not violate those rules. We consider the additional information provided and decided an overturn of our original decision is not warranted in this case. Therefore, we will not overturn our decision to lock your account. In order to restore account functionality, you can resolve the violations by logging into your account and completing the on-screen instructions. Okay, so I'm going to have to go through I have to go through camp, guys. I got to go through the internment camp or whatever they're called. No, not internment camp. But what are those things called where they have to reprogram your brain? Great. So all I got to do is answer some questions. I won't do it again. I promise. I promise I won't. Elon, I promise I won't do it again. Sorry, is that offensive? I don't know. Okay, let me see here. Managing account. I don't have to do this live. I'm just kind of taking a peek at the help center for X and seeing what the situation is here. All right, you know what? I'll figure it out later. I'm not going to figure it out right now. Account is still suspended. Great. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's not looking good, folks. It's not looking good. Apparently, I'm re-education camp. Thank you, chat. Appreciate it. Yeah, re-education camp. I love Elon. We love Elon. Elon number one. Elon going to take me to space. I want to be on moon with Elon. He will save humanity. All he has to do, give me 0.001% of his wealth. Okay. Yep. All right. I don't know what this on-screen instructions are because I just logged into my account and it's the same thing. Your account is suspended and locked. Describe the problem. That's what I did. I described the problem. You guys locked me out. All right. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Keep praying for me with that. You know, it's too bad too, because I just got it. I got the account monetized. And, you know, I'll tell you what, folks, you get 1 million impressions on a post on X a couple times. You'll definitely make like $50. I promise. It's like the best $50 you'll ever make. Is trolling on X and having your post go viral, getting 1 million impressions might pay for half a tank of gas or something, you know? So keep it going, folks. Keep it going. Keep pushing. Hey, look, I'm used to this. I'm built for this. You're not going to hold down the Gons account. You're not going to hold down Face Like the Sun. You know, I will tell you this, folks. I'm already operating separately on X. There is another account that I run on X, completely separated from all the stuff I talk about here, and I did that on purpose. But so it's not like I'm not going to be on X, but it'll be under this other account. Go look for it if you know how to look for things. But yeah, it's too bad, man. It's too bad. It's too bad that they are thinking that I violated inauthentic behaviors. When there's accounts that are like using bots and stuff to reply and do that kind of thing. So free speech on X, everybody. Well done. Well done. Appreciate all of you. God bless you. Stay watchful and share the show. Share with friends, family. Do that because clearly X is not going to help us. Elon's not going to help me. YouTube's not going to help us. But which, by the way, YouTube, again, massive unsubscribes on the Face Like the Sun YouTube account. I had a huge wave of subscribers about a month ago. And then like clockwork, they just unsubscribed like, 200, 300, 400 people all at once. All of a sudden, to even it all out, keep us in the tiny box or whatever. So, you know how it goes, folks. They're not going to let us go out there and get really big because number one, we don't want to. And number two, it would be bad because we preach the gospel around here and they want the gospel shared under their particular ways, not free thinking ways. So go tell a friend, go tell a family member, even go tell a pet. All you got to do is walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and shake him.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
Human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Just ask Noah. Any last words, Basil? Nothing? Let's see. Let me see what kind of Basil ISOs we got. Let me see.
Gotta get that hype, bro.
Oh my gosh. How prophetic is that? How prophetic.
Gotta get that hype, bro.
My brain itches.
All right. Thank you, Basil, for your support. Appreciate it.
Gotta get that hype, bro.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys Wednesday. God bless you. Remember to think outside the cage.
Give me a break.
He's a Satanist from one of the Satanist churches here where they sacrifice babies.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
Cosmos, children in the space lane.
I'm an adult in a spaceship.
Supersonic space plane screamed to life and the vehicle swooped upward. On board, the passengers experienced 3 G's of force from the burst of extreme acceleration and watched the blue sky fade into space.
In the back have been cleared to unstrap.
Oh, yeah.
In the back have been cleared to unstrap.
Yes, do it, Richard. Do it, Jeff. Do it for humanity.
To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship.
He can accomplish it. You can too. Big windows, cool. Rocket ship, cool. Space plane, cool.
Nukes,
cool.
Blowing stuff up,
cool. Space plane, astronaut, rocket ship.
Previous anchor.
Yeah, Basil is a human. Just look at him. Go to the bathroom in bags. He can go to the bathroom in the cosmos. It changed everything. In space. Children in the cosmos. With your best friend, brother. Wives in the cosmos. Children in the space lane.
We are headed to space.
Dang it. I think I was psyoped.
That's on YouTube. People
Well,
collections, yeah.
Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom.
Heaven, can I? Heaven, can I? Tell me how you see it. Show me how to think, babe. Cause I don't like what I'm seeing. Guess I'm outside of your beacon. Steady, steady, but I'm sinking. Up to heaven, not to singing. Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, heaven, can I?
Now available.
Can I explain what you see? Cause I'm in pretty season. All this pain I've been reaping. No free falling. Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, heaven, can I? Can I explain what you see? I've been acting sort of feverish. These actions are the reason. So can you tell me how to preach this? Thank you, tell me that you see it. Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, heaven, can I?
Every little thing you do brings tears to my
eyes. Can't you see that I'm bleeding? Heart barely beating. Plus it's deceiving. Lungs ain't receiving. Down on my knees, yeah. With you I'm pleading. Save me from me, yeah.
Now available.
All my excuses. You said you'd excuse it. But I still feel ruthless. Walking around clueless. Like how did I do this? Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, heaven, can I? Use your life for these bruises. Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, heaven, can I? Heaven, can I?
taking, and no man deceive you. Men shall come in my name, said I am Christ, and shall deceive any. He shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, a kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary cry.